Aloha everyone, Joshua Hayes of BigWaveTrading.com. No surprise, stocks continue to sell off on Friday following the Thursday sell-off, following another low to no volume V-shaped rally right into resistance. This is exactly what I expected following Wednesday. The Russell 2000 was a surprise yesterday, and that was awesome overall. But today was basically right on par with what I expected. And then once again, what do you see in the SPY here? Oh, above average volume. That's a distribution day. Actually, it misses distribution because it's not down 0.20%. But still, the big tall red volume bar rears its ugly head again. The DIA, you can see it was at least lower, only down 0.14% once again. So we did miss distribution there. The NASDAQ, you can see at least it pulled back on lower volume. The QQQ though, the ETF, you can see that heavier volume pullback, but still we avoided a distribution day, but just never good to see that heavier volume overall. But not that bad. Only the NYC, I see volume up significantly on the Russell 2000, the IWM. This is the weak one on the day, down 0.41%, kind of making up for its outside relative strength the session before, but volume was at least lower in the session before, and we still have BOP going in the right direction. So I like seeing that. Now looking at more of the general market indexes here. Let me go ahead and widen this out for everybody. Now let's go through here. We can see that the S&P 500 actually pulled back on lower volume today, so that is good to see. And then you can see on the NASDAQ also the lower volume on the pullback, so that's also good to see. And the New York Stock Exchange advanced decline line, it is holding up relatively well, so I do like seeing that as well. And then at the same time, the IBD put call ratio, while not anywhere near, super negative sentiment, it still overall is elevated compared to where it could be at if the crowd was completely complacent. But since we're also not fearful, it's kind of hard to think that, oh, we're definitely going higher from these levels. So with that out of the way, let's see. There are my intraday stops. You can see the buy orders that filled. Oh, that's right. I had to take a copy because I already closed down my Interactive Brokers account. So here are the buy that went through. You can see that it took a while for XO to fill. Then you can see the stops that went through. It was just pretty consistent all day long due to the slow sell-off in the overall market with the IWM Russell 2000 picking up steam into the end. The vast majority of these were for profit stops, but there were a lot of sell stops in here. You can review those on your own. I want to get to the end of day sell signals. BZQ is closing below the 50-day moving average and below the recent support levels on above average volume. So that's technically a 50% end of day sell signal, but really I have a ton of stops here. I'm just going to put another one here. So if I got 10, I now have 11. They're all split evenly because it really, even though you'll see one BZQ stop that triggered, it really went through two stops, but it was gapping in the pre-market below both of them, so I consolidated them into one, so only one stop triggered on BZQ. But at least if you're doing an end-of-day basis, you got to have half right here, but for me, it's just all evened out all the way down, and I got a lot of different stops. If you want to know where they're at, send me a message in the comment section underneath the video or underneath the new positions page, or ask me in the chat room and I'll tell you exactly where my stops are. And that goes for any stock anywhere, or send me an email, whatever you want to do. DS is a 50% sell signal with it closing below this low day here and this low day. I never got filled on DS as it gapped away from me and just ran. So I never got a position in DS. But if you did somehow, 50% needs to go below today's low day, and then you'll have a stop here, a stop there, a stop there, and maybe your final stop right there, which I actually doubt it because the 200-day moving average. So your final stop should probably be on DS right there. TTI, you'll see it got one of my stops intraday. What I have remaining, splitting it up, 50% here of what I have left, and my final half is right below that low day on TTI. ELOX. Hit already my 50% sell stop because I had 50% of what I had left right there. You'll see that sell or that profit stop that triggered intraday. That's that one right there. But what I have left, I have a profit, or I don't know what that is anymore. That might be like a break-even stop and then a sell stop here, moving 50% to right there. So I'll have 50% right there, 25% there, and my final 25% right there in ELOX. And then SURF went through 50%. I put 50% of my remaining position below this low here. You'll see that stop triggered intraday, but then it also got this one, and then that one maybe, or maybe it just got this one. I don't know. Whichever stops it hit what it hit. You can see that on the intraday stops page or the tab that I brought up. But for what I have left, 50% goes right here of what I have left, 25% right there, and the final 25% right there. And then we have two 100% end of day sell signals, NEPT. It has completely rolled over. It's closing below the signal date's low a day after the signal date went from losing max green bop to green bop to yellow to red bop. So it already went through all four of the cycle changes in the bop color, which meant once it closed under the low a day signal, it was a full sell signal. Now, I still have a position, or do I not anymore? I don't. It hit it. It hit it. That's right. You'll see the two stops on NEPT. I had half, I guess, here, and then the final half was right there. It eclipsed it intraday, so that's right. I no longer have a position. But on an end-of-day basis, you'll see it's closing at 281, but that low is 280, so why is it a 100% full sell signal? Well, it wouldn't have been if the rollover would have been with green bop the whole way, but since it already cycled through all the way to red bop, this is just not a stock I want to be long. So with the closing below this low a day, the signal date's 284, it is a full sell signal. And then FIT, and the first time in a long time, you'll see 4 intraday stops triggered on FIT. On an end-of-day basis, it's failed, but I had a stop here, that hit intraday, had a stop here, that hit intraday, had a stop here, that hit intraday, and I had a stop here, that hit intraday, all for very small losses. And now you can see that if I would have waited just for an end-of-day sell signal, that would have combined for a much larger loss. But on an end-of-day basis, if you're long, 100% of your stops have to go below today's low a day, as that goes for well for NEPT below 279 if you still happen to be long. Now, there's 4 long signals for Monday. 2 are speculative because they are not canceling or perfect speculator quality, and they have earnings coming up. But at the same time, my 2 quality, quote, quote, quality long positions are quality only because they are from my perfect speculator scan. The first one is OSPN. OSPN is from my perfect speculator scan and was confirmed in my price volume bop surge scan, but this one has earnings on 7/26 after the market close. I believe that's Tuesday after the market close. This is too risky for anyone. New traders, stay away. I completely stay away. Now for me, I'm basically fully invested. I only have so much cash. The charts that are out there aren't that good looking. So the few actually halfway decent looking charts like this, and notice I'm saying that with all this red bop. Once again, these charts don't look like this, do they? They don't look like this, do they? They don't like NWI did or SKY did recently, and even that's not doing well. But you'll notice that, they don't quite look like that. So if the charts aren't looking like this, I'm not that in love with them. But OSPN, that's a signal I can't pass on, because if it works, the potential gains that this thing could make based on its previous measure move is right around 88%. And if all hell breaks loose, normally I'm only going to lose 6%. Guys, that's a reward risk ratio greater than 10 to 1. I can't pass on that even with earnings coming up. So what I'm going to do is reduce my size. Instead of 1.5% of my capital, it's going to be 0.75% of my capital, limit order 2080, and then my first stop is right there, 1970. So if it doesn't move higher immediately, I'll be out. And then my final stop is actually this low right here, because it's splitting hairs with this low, because it's a 5-cent stock at 1920. So 1970 and 1920 are my stops. If it doesn't move higher immediately, I'll cut my losses. And if it does happen to gap down due to poor earnings, I don't see this one based off the accumulation that it was just under from the February lows, gapping down that much. And if it does with a 0.75% position, it's not going to destroy me unless it gaps down 50%. Then it'll hit my quote, quote, max paying dollar mark. dollar amount loss mark, but unless it does that, I'm fine. So OSPN 2080, 1970, 1920, 0.75% of my account capital, earnings on 726. I'm a madman. Don't be a madman. Then the other new long position is not a new long position. I'm sorry. It's an ad signal, IMMP. What's wrong with it? It's only a $2 stock. Volume surge isn't huge today. It's extended from its 20-day moving average. It has a history of potentially being very volatile, sometimes intraday, and that's because it's a liquid. So there's a lot of negatives. At the same time, since March, this is a really good looking chart. Look at all the big, tall, green accumulation volume bars. There are some red bars here, but you'll see when they do happen, they're immediately reversed with strong green buying volume. So I got the big, tall, green volume bars, and since March, there's all green bop. There's one red bop bar, which I don't like, but as you'll see, it was contained and immediately moved higher. So MMP has a lot of green bop, a lot of tall volume bars, and very good, solid, tight price action compared to what it was having. So all that being said, IMMP is an ad signal. So with it being perfect speculator, it would normally be 1. It's got to be half to 0.5. And then it's also extended from the 20-day moving average. So it's only 0.25% of my account capital. Limit order 260. And then look at the first stop level. Super, super tight, 252. The next one's right there as well, 241. Then I got another one at 231. Then my final one, 214. Chances are if 252 and or 241 goes, this final stop at least will never, ever come into play. All right, slim pickings out there. Must mean that we're heading into August and September, 2 seasonally very poor months of the year for overall stock market returns. And obviously, August coincides with earnings season, which are always, no matter when it is, choppy and volatile. So keep all of that in mind as we move forward into the new trading week. I'll see you all in the chat room on Monday during the pre-market. Aloha and have a great weekend.